Hello and welcome to this edition of Montgomery County Police Beat. I'm Patrick Lacefield, Director of Montgomery County's Office of Public Information.
And I'm Chief Tom Manger.
Each month the Chief will visit our studios to discuss current community issues from the perspective of our county police force. Chief, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Let's talk today about Question B, which is on the county ballot. Question B really is a question about how the Montgomery County Police Force is going to be managed and whether it's going to be managed with efficiency, with innovation, with accountability. Last year, the County Council repealed a part of the law that allowed basically union leaders to have to approve or for you to have to bargain with union leaders, basically anything that you want to do to run the police force. And I know it had been existing for about 30 years. The County Council finally got to doing away with it. Talk to me about Question B and why it's so important.
Well, it's called effects bargaining, and it's on the ballot this November with a number of other questions, some very important questions that folks have to take a position on. But this has to do with effects bargaining. And I guess the first thing that folks need to understand is it's not collective bargaining. Collective bargaining still remains. That's where, of course, the employer and the union negotiate wages and salaries, benefits, things like that.
Even safety issues.
Correct.
Right.
And this effects bargaining is a very narrow topic, and it has to do with as the chief, I have certain management rights in terms of running the police department. Very common sense things. I can determine how work is done, what work is done, things like that. The things that people would assume that the chief is able to do to run the police department. Well, I am the only police chief in the state of Maryland. I am the only director of an agency in Montgomery County that actually has to bargain every time I invoke that management right to do something, create a policy or do something to run the department. And basically, what it comes down to is every decision I make, every management decision I make is bargainable. And it's not an efficient way to do business. In fact, there is example after example where it has not only been an inefficient way to do business, it's cost the taxpayers money, and it's really diminished the accountability that I think that I am trying to bring to the public in terms of the service that we're delivering to the public.
So no other police union in Maryland has this right.
That's correct.
And no other county government union, Montgomery County Government Union, has this in their contract.
That's correct. I mean, it's the County Council back in the early 80s gave this effects bargaining to the police union. Since then, other unions, the fire union, the general county union, have gone to the County Council to try to get this effects bargaining. And the County Council historically has said, basically,
no way, it wasn't working for the police.
Yeah, I said, we think that it was, we're not going to take it away from the police, but we really know that it's not a good idea, so we're certainly not going to give it to the other unions. Well, I think we'd had enough experience with effects bargaining that the council looked at it last year and said, this really is hampering the ability of the chief to run the department as efficiently as the department should be run. And the County Council unanimously passed this law restricting effects bargaining. And so
unanimously, and this is a County Council that's very pro-labor.
They certainly have been historically, and I think they continue to be.
Right.
It does, as I said before, it doesn't affect collective bargaining.
Right.
That still is very strong, and certainly I respect that process. But this just basically puts me on the same level playing field that every other police chief is on, that every other county agency director is on.
Yeah. Well, actually, I come out of the union movement, and I dare say that probably 99.99% of union contracts in the entire country don't have this kind of sweeping effects bargaining. I think what's interesting here in terms of the county issue also is that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party in the county, they may not agree on many other things, but they've both agreed that they're urging voters to vote for Question B, in other words, to vote for the position that repeals effect bargaining. Also, the Washington Post has stepped in and said they're in favor of it, the Montgomery County Taxpayers League and the like, and also the Montgomery County Organizational Reform Commission, which was supposed to look at how to run the county in the most cost-effective way. But let's get to some specific examples of how effects bargaining has been bad for the residents of Montgomery County. Talk for a minute about the Silver Spring situation where you wanted to reassign officers.
You know, one of the things that I have a management right to do is to assign officers to do certain work and to schedule officers, that sort of thing. We had seen an uptick in crime in the Silver Spring area, specifically the White Oak area, and we had asked for actually the assistant chief in charge of our patrol folks asked for volunteers to go to Silver Spring for a several-month period so that we could try and have an impact on the uptick in crime there. And we got a fair number of folks that volunteered to go down there. And one of the things that the assistant chief had put in the memo was that officers would go down for a finite period of time, whether it was 90 days or 60 or 90 days or whatever, and that once their temporary assignment was completed, that they would go back to their original assignment wherever that was. Mm-hmm. And all this was laid out in the memo. Now, in our collective bargaining agreement, in the contract we have, it's laid out very specifically how we can transfer people and how we can schedule people. All that's been negotiated years ago. And one of the things that's in the contract, it does allow for people to voluntarily ask for transfers. And we were asking for volunteers. We actually had the ability to transfer people involuntarily, but number one, we didn't want to do that, and number two, that's a more cumbersome process where you have to give them a certain amount of notice. We wanted to do this quickly. Right. So the union came forward and said, well, before you do this, we want to bargain this temporary transfer to Silver Spring. And we told them that this was our management right.
Wait a minute, they wanted to bargain it before it could happen?
Correct.
In other words, they wanted to get in the way of you putting officers into Silver Spring?
Well, it would have delayed us getting officers down there. And again, we were trying to deal with a crime situation that was occurring right then. So we told them that we had the management right to ask for volunteers and to transfer these folks who voluntarily wanted to do this. Right. And they said, well, we want, okay, you may have the management right, but we want to bargain the effect it has on our employees. And we want in writing, we want you to sign in writing that they're guaranteed to go back to to their original assignment.
Which you'd already put in writing.
Which I responded, well, it's in the memo. Right. So we believed that we had complied with what they wanted with the memo, and they still demanded to negotiate. Now, in the meantime, we actually had these officers go down to Silver Spring, and at least one of the officers told us that he had heard from the FOP, and they said, listen, if we don't have this in writing, we want people to rescind their transfers, their voluntary transfer. Right. We want people not to go to Silver Spring. Right. Well, this would have had a pretty significant impact on our ability to deal with this crime situation. Right. Now, to their credit, the folks that volunteered said, you know what, we're going. And they went, and they did a great job, and we were able to address the crime situation. Crime rates went down dramatically.
No thanks to the union leader.
Well, but thanks to the great work that the men and women in this department did.
Themselves.
Yes, absolutely. And so we continued to this bargaining process with the union simultaneously, and by the time we got to the point where we signed the agreement, the officers had actually finished their assignment in Silver Spring and were all back to where they were assigned originally. So I think it wasted the taxpayers' money, all this, have to negotiate all this, but it's the process that I have to go through now because effects bargaining exists.
Is it true that until recently, because of effects bargaining, you weren't even allowed to require officers to have a county email account or to check their email?
Yes, we had wanted to distribute information. Certainly a more efficient way to distribute information than giving everybody a piece of paper.
Right.
And the union had resisted that and wouldn't agree to it. for years. And so we were having to, spend a lot of extra money getting hard copies of memos and promotional announcements and all kinds of things out to everybody in the department. Because the FOP would not agree that officers, should have to check their county email.
And then that was in the papers during the council deliberations.
It was, and then it's funny that the following bargaining session we actually did get an agreement. Now, I think a lot of people will question, well, why did you actually have to bargain that?
Right.
Well, but we did,
Right.
and we finally got an agreement. So now officers do check their emails account, and it's a much more efficient way to do it. But it should have gotten done years ago.
Right. Briefly, let's talk about the yellow armbands and Discovery.
We had the situation of Discovery, and we had an off-duty officer who went in and very heroically was very instrumental in making sure that no innocent person was harmed during that incident. He was in shorts and a T-shirt off-duty, and he put on a yellow armband that said police that we had issued. We had issued those armbands to everyone, and if they were going to take police action off duty, we had to give people take-home cars. So we wanted them to have that so they could be identified as police officers. And the union said no, we didn't bargain those. So they demanded to bargain that. And so we couldn't, we still have not been able to get to a point where we can mandate that the officers put those on if they're off duty, just to avoid a friendly fire situation and to help people identify.
This is
if they might be
to officers' benefit.
Yes,
As well as the public.
yes.
So is an ongoing theme here accountability?
I think that's one of the big themes. When we try and put policies in place that that increase the accountability of the police department to the public. What we find is that we have to bargain the effect of what would happen to the officer if they didn't comply with the policy. And we end up, I think, diminishing our accountability to the public because so many of these things have been negotiated where the effect, the effect that it has on the employee is, well, they might get in trouble if they don't comply. Well, that's what accountability is all about. I mean, you want people to comply with your policies, and if they don't, they should be held accountable. From me, to every other employee on the police department.
My understanding also is there are 14 or 15 policies that you've sent to the FOP for, quote, their approval that are just sitting there. Some have been there for 4 years.
And we send them, and we believe that it's an effects bargaining issue, and that it, and they'll say no, there's more to it. We have to negotiate more.
And in another system, you could just implement this policy.
We could,
as long as it's within management rights.
Right. Yes.
That's amazing, amazing. Well, it's no wonder that so many people have come out in the community for Question B, both all the county council, county executive, and the like. Thanks for coming here to talk about it.
My pleasure.
I'm Patrick Lacefield here with Montgomery County Police Chief Tom Manger. Thanks for watching, and please join us again next month for another edition of Montgomery County Police Beat.
Have you ever parked illegally in a reserved accessible parking space?
And thought, what's the harm? I'm only going to be a minute.
We know how important it is to have reserved parking.
And the adjacent striped access aisles provide necessary space needed for assistance devices like my wheelchair and my service dog.
Respect the need for reserved parking and the laws that govern its use.
On behalf of everyone with accessible plates and placards,
We are asking you
to respect the space.
Pedestrian safety is a two-way street. Drivers, it's your job to expect the unexpected. Walkers and cyclists, you need to move with caution and pay attention to your surroundings. There's a lot going on out there, and you don't want to miss anything.